Hi viewers, and welcome to another episode of On the Farm, where we are vocal about everything local. I am Shakima Hanley. As we continue our hurricane precaution series, we'll be speaking today with the Livestock Extension Officer right here at the government pound. But before we get into the discussion, we take a short break and be right back after this. Welcome back, viewers. I have joining me the Livestock Extension Officer, and I'm going to ask her to introduce herself.
Good day, I am Kamara Louisy. I am the Livestock Extension Officer, part of the Livestock Unit slash Vet Unit of the Agriculture Department.
Welcome, Kamara, to On the Farm.
Thank you.
It's your first time having you, and we're grateful to have you today.
Yeah.
Okay, let us start with the pens. So, for those animals that are in pens, what precautions are required for during hurricane season?
Okay. Well, I wouldn't just say hurricane season, I would say any natural disaster, right? Because as we know, we are in the middle of some climate change issues, and so we don't only have hurricanes to worry about, we have tropical storms, tropical depressions, even rainy seasons and stuff like that. And so all those things can affect the animals depending on where they are housed. Now, when you have animals that are housed in a pen, in St. Kitts Nevis predominantly, even though the animals are housed in pens that is just for overnight, for the most part, they are left to roam during the course of the day, either in a confined pasture or left to roam wherever they want to roam. In cases of where you have a natural disaster or heavy winds or something like that, it's always recommended, firstly, to ensure that you have your trees, if there are any trees that are growing around it, to make sure that you cut back the trees so that the limbs don't fall on the pens. That's number one. Number two, you need to shore up the roofing. Unfortunately, most pens are made with galvanized and 2x4 and so on, and they're not the strongest material because usually they have been recycled. So it's some farmers, they would go and they would get the tarp and they put the tarp over the roof, or they would put blocks down to keep it down. Some have straps that they would strap down the roofing areas, and then others, they just hope and pray for the best and put the animals inside, right? So you cut the trees, you make sure the roof is secure. And then you want to look at the flooring area. Most pens have dirt floors, but unfortunately, depending on where they are situated, if there's runoff, then you're going to have an issue with the pen actually being flooded. Okay. So what some farmers actually do, they would dig a trench around the pen, or they have runoff holes. So it's not a case where they have the galvanized or the 2x4 running down and it's just there blocked off so that if water gets in, it'll raise up. They have avenues that when the water comes through, it actually runs off, okay, right? And then on top of that too, you have to make sure that the wire, because some pens are just galvanized and wire. They don't have any board or anything like that. And so you have to make sure that the wire is properly secured, stapled in, make sure the posts are strong enough, right? Plant in, or if the bottom of the fence line is not cemented in or blocked in, right, you can get the metal stakes, the steel stakes, bend them over, and some farmers pound them and ground them into the ground so that they secure at least the wire area of the fence.
Okay, you made mention of pasture. What about those animals that are just extensively on pastures? How would you deal with them during a hurricane season?
Okay, it might seem counterintuitive, and this is mostly for large animals such like cattle, right? where you might think you want to tie them or secure them to a tree or a post or something like that. But in very windy weather, not just hurricanes, but very windy, high windy weather and whatever it is, that can pose a hazard or danger to the animal itself. So the best thing to do, as counterintuitive as it might sound, is actually just to release the animal and let them roam. And then after the storm has passed, or that weather has passed, then you go and look for them. Most animals, because they know where home is, where water is, where food is, they will come back by themselves.
Okay.
Right? In a case where you don't see them, obviously, then is when you would have to go and look for them.
And I know they say animals usually have a intuition where they know to
Yeah,
protect themselves in the event of any storms
They
or
know how to
emergency
hide and
and stuff.
hunker down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, poultry. Tell us how do poultry farmers what procedures poultry farmers have to take to secure themselves?
Okay, the issue with poultry is that they are very sensitive to temperature changes.
Okay.
And they're very sensitive to moisture.
Okay.
So those are the two things that you want to protect the poultry against: the moisture and the severe temperature changes. Because especially if it's a hurricane or high winds and it gets very windy and they get cold, they would have a tendency to want to huddle together.
Okay.
And in the huddling together, they actually cause themselves to overheat and they die that way. So you don't want to do that. So basically, you would want to ensure that you have a safe, high, dry place for them, so that they can, weather the storm, spaced out, so that even if they do congregate, it's not a whole set of them congregating together, right? You ensure that the direction that the rain or the wind is coming from, that you have an area that is blocked off so it doesn't directly come into the pen. Some farmers use taps. Some poultry houses already have the flaps that are over, and some of them have the dropping doors that they actually drop down the doors, or the what do you call them? Blinders or so on, so to protect that area so the wind and the rain don't come in and damage or cause harm to the animals, to the birds.
Food and supply.
Okay, right. So this is always a ticklish one. This is always a ticklish one in that depends. We have the supply office here, right? And we always recommend that you don't really want to feed your ruminants too much grain. Unfortunately, when it comes to hurricane season and so on, you have to stock up on the grain as a precursor. So you want to have enough grain to last you at least 2 weeks, right? If you're going to get molasses, you get enough molasses, whatever it is, to last you 2 weeks. If you have outside water containers and so on, the ideal thing to do is to fill them with water before the storm passes. And it's not for the animals to come back after and go, it's actually to weight them down so that they don't fly off, right? And even inside an enclosed area, you want those water troughs to be filled up also. Because just in case, maybe a roof might fly off or whatever it is, you don't want those heavy things picking up and flying around and harming the animals accordingly. So it's always recommended 2 weeks worth of feed, 2 weeks worth of molasses. Make sure you have your electrolytes. Make sure that you fill up all your water containers and get them as heavy as possible. And then if you are used to feeding your animals cuttings or grass or whatever it is, then you get as much cuttings, understanding that it's only going to last you a few days because they're going to dry out, but enough to at least last you to 3 to 4 days. Have it properly stored with a tarp over it. It's okay if they get wet because it's grass, it's forage or whatever it is, and that might actually help preserve them a little bit, but ensure that you have them in a place that they're not going to fly off or blow away, or at least be washed away somewhere.
You made mention of filling the troughs with water. Do you have to put anything inside of it? Maybe, I don't know, water, you can prevent that water get contaminated or harboring mosquitoes or whatever, because it's still water now.
Yeah, this is where you always recommend that you have buckets, bins, and barrels and so on that are covered with water in them, right? A lot of the more established pens, they have the runoff, where the runoff goes into a bin that is right there. and that is quote unquote fresh water.
Okay.
So in the event that the water that has been stored in the bins or the troughs gets contaminated, you have access to that fresh water in case, you know, a pipe bursts somewhere, or, you know, you're in an area that you have to carry water from.
Okay. What do you do with the younger animals? Because I know they're a bit more vulnerable. So
Yeah.
how would you deal with them?
Younger animals, you would keep them with the flock.
Okay.
You would, unless it's a case where they are the rejected babies, and it happens with sheep, goats, cattle specifically, where sometimes the mother does not take them on. In a case like that, farmers usually pen them in or have them in maybe a kennel or a crate, or have them somewhere in the household, in a garage or somewhere close by, so that can have access to them to give them their feeding and everything else. But in general, you usually keep the young ones with their mothers. You don't separate them.
Okay. In the event of an injury or some sort of medical situation during a hurricane, what would you advise the farmers to do?
Okay, well, the same way that you would also get, you know, your 2 weeks worth supply of your feed and everything else, it's also recommended that you have a first aid kit for your animals. And the first aid kit, simple, hydrogen peroxide, some antibiotic lotion or powder, and you can also purchase an antibiotic spray from the vet services. They have that for the farmers. Electrolytes, bandages, iodine if they can get it. You can use Dettol or salve, and this is just for general cleaning and washing of the wounds to make sure that if it's something that can be managed until the vet services can come and, you know, do a proper checkup, administer injectable antibiotics, stuff like that. And of course, if it's something major, as soon as the storm is over, you will get in contact with the vet services immediately so that they can come and sort it out before the situation gets worse.
Okay. You may mention of the vet unit quite a bit. Does the vet do anything prior and after a storm or a hurricane?
Not really. The vet service is just there to ensure that after the storm specifically, that all those farmers who are in need of help get it as soon as possible.
Okay. All right, Miss Kamara, thank you. It was a mouthful, and I hope that the information that will be aired here will be taken into practice, and the farmers are more readily prepared in the event that we have a storm or hurricane. But as you know, we are in hurricane season.
Oh yes.
The peak is right upon us now,
yes.
so chances are, God forbid, you know, we still have to prepare ourselves in advance in the event that something come along our way. So thank you again for being on the farm.
You're welcome.
And I do hope that we can have you again sometime.
Oh, sure.
All right then.
Fresh local fruit and vegetables produced for our nourishment. Buy local, eat local.
And there you have it, viewers. Another episode of On the Farm, where we are vocal about everything local. And just to recap, we had the Livestock Extension Officer giving us some of the precaution measures that farmers can put into place, both poultry, pasture farmers, farmers who have extensive, semi and inextensive system, and what are the things they can do during the event of a hurricane, a storm, or some sort of natural disaster. I do hope that this show was fruitful and farmers would be able to benefit from it. And until next time, this was On the Farm. I am Shakima Hanley.